You're listening to Call That Girl's Office 365 show. I'm Lisa Hendrickson, your hostess, and this is show number 22. Just a reminder, you can find all my shows and notes at callthatgirl.biz/office365 or on the Podnuts network, podnuts.com/CTG. And this show is our first live YouTube broadcast. So if you want to be aware of when we have other broadcast shows live, subscribe to my channel at youtube.com/callthatgirl. And you should get notifications of all the live events coming up. Now, this show is about Outlook and Office 365. So if you're an inspiring Office 365 tech or veteran and just like listening to stories, I welcome everyone. Just as an FYI, I do talk a lot about Microsoft Exchange migrations, and in time, as I do more shows, we will touch upon other Office 365 products as well. The reason why I focus more on migrations is because so many people are moving to Office 365 for Microsoft Exchange, and this is kind of what the techs really need to learn about the most, I think, right now. Then we can move into the other stuff later. If you have any questions, feel free to email me at lisa@callthatgirl.biz, and I welcome stories, questions. If you want to be a guest, let me know. And before we get going, I'd like to take a moment to thank our new show sponsor, AppRiver. AppRiver is email and web security specialists. AppRiver offers phenomenal Office 365 sales and support, and they have been my preferred vendor for all my clients for 2 years now, and I'm thrilled to have them on as a sponsor. If you have listened to my past shows, you have probably heard me speak about AppRiver often, and to set up a time to talk to my sales rep, Steve Harris, you can email him at sharris@appriver.com. With us here on the show is Marvin B. from Florida, who I've met in person before. Welcome, Marvin.
Hello, Lisa.
Hello. And Marvin was a guest a couple shows ago.
Yeah.
We just kind of, with Derek, we talked about a few things of Office 365, and Marvin had an upcoming migration that's going to be our topic of the show later on. And Marvin said it was pretty juicy, so we want to hear all the details.
Oh, thick and juicy.
I don't think any migration goes well. I've had some nice ones that kind of go well, but okay, so Marvin, before I jump into my cute stories of the week I tell, we were just talking before on pre-show about going to the CompTIA conference, ChannelCon, in Chicago, in August 3rd through the 5th.
Right.
So Marvin here is saying because he's a independent contractor or consultant, sorry, he cannot take off 5 or 6 days to go. So why don't you tell us what you plan on doing?
Yeah, right now I probably will be flying in Sunday night and enjoying any pre-conference festivities with some of the other techs that are going early. And I'll probably be there Monday and probably part of Tuesday.
Okay.
And then I'll fly back Tuesday night because I just can't leave that many days. I do have some projects that are going on, so
Sure.
Probably a couple of server migrations around that time. So I've tried to check out all of the topics that are going to be going on with speakers and some of the breakout sessions, and picked a couple that I'll go to. But mainly, I'm going to see other techs and see a lot of the Pod Nuts community, Tech Nibble people, and that's really why I'm going to be going.
It's really going to be, I think, a fascinating event for all technicians and podcasting fans. And I'll give a little story about last year's comp I went to in Phoenix, as I've never gone to a tech conference ever. I flew in on Sunday, and lo and behold, I'm not even kidding you, I walk in the hotel, and the first person I run into is Mike Smith from the Mike Tech Show. It was pretty hilarious. I'm like, hey, there's Mike. And then all of a sudden, there's Carrie Holzman. So those two guys were kind of like my buddies for the whole event, because you kind of like similar things,
Right.
And the event itself was interesting because it was a mix of technicians, which I would have to say that there wasn't a lot of our kind of level technicians there, but a lot of technology people and MSP and VAR and SAR and a lot of vendors and a lot of really high-level kind of technical people, I guess, that I don't know. I guess, when I went to see the speaker lineup, I actually had to work during the whole event last year. So I would work in the hotel room and then go down to the events as I could. I didn't have this year. I'll be more prepared. But anyway, I went from Sunday to Wednesday. I think I flew home. And this year, I'm going to come in on Saturday. And I think I'm going to drive it because I'm only 6 hours from Chicago. And I'm doing an exhibit booth. And I'm also managing we're doing a podcasting show for a bunch of podcasters. And so far, I believe the confirmed lineup is, I'll try to remember everybody. Matt Rainey, Matt Rodella, Jeff Hallish, Door to Door Geek, myself, Chris Carruthers, and I think that might be it. Oh, Mike Smith, too. So it's a pretty good lineup of podcasters that are coming. And then there's also going to be a Technical meetup that might be blended with that podcasting show because we only get 2 hours.
Right.
So, and then there's a couple other events going on as well.
So you got a virtual who's who of Podnuts.
Kind of, or the podcasting community, I guess we could add, because Matt Rainey has his own, and Matt Rodella and Mike Smith.
Right.
But it's looking like it's going to be a really good meetup for everybody to, do some, talking about stuff in person, meeting each other. The value I know is that when I met Carrie and Mike last year, it just kind of solidified some other parts of our relationship, like meeting people in person, having dinner with them, talking. And that's why it's good for you to come on Sunday, probably, Marvin.
Yeah.
Because the pre-night.
Yeah, and I remember watching the live show from Phoenix last year and remembering Mike and Carrie talking about how, that was the first time they had met face to face. So getting those interactions it's a huge thing to actually connect with others in the industry that are, a lot of times going through the same struggles that we are going through. And it just makes that camaraderie that much more sweeter.
I actually met Chris, my white label partner, for the first time there. Chris Carruthers. Year and a half. I think at that point we were into maybe a year. We have a virtual business relationship, and I never even met him until we got there. So there's a lot of value to coming to the event. So just a little promo here again is it's in Chicago, August 3rd through the 5th is the official 3 days. The CompTIA offerings are pretty big. They give you transportation if you get the tickets through us. So if you want to check out the full list, you can go to callthatgirl.biz/CompTIA. And CompTIA is more than just a certificate, company for networking and all that stuff. They have a lot of learning opportunities and value add, and outside of that, we're doing our stuff. And I recommend anybody wanting to get out for a few days to come to the event. Okay, we can move on now, Marvin. So before we hit onto your stuff, I'm going to talk about a couple big jobs I did this week that I'm never surprised when I get these calls in because I kind of think I've always seen it all until the next one comes in. And the one that kind of shocked me was this guy calls in and says, my Outlook is missing all my folders and all my files. And I can never tell if this is going to be a 15-minute job or whatever. So I remote in, and I'm like, oh, it just looks like your Gmail, I think it was Gmail, wasn't configured correctly. So let's just go configure it correctly. Because he had it set up for POP, and Gmail works better with IMAP.
Right.
So I go, yeah, let's set it up, and we downloaded it, and only his inbox and his sent came in. He goes, oh, no, that's not all of everything. And I was like, man, that was like a lot of email alone. So then he said his IT person couldn't find the files, and that to me is a big clue that it's probably an OST file because a lot of technicians miss the OST because they're looking in the, they open up the data files through Outlook and they can't see the OST.
Right.
And lo and behold, I find a 25 gig OST hiding. And you can't open those in Outlook, and the OST repair doesn't come with 2010 anymore. So basically, I said to him, well, I was a half hour into this job. I said, let's run the OST repair converter tool and see what happens. That's the best I can offer you. And he's like, how long is this going to take? And I'm like, hours, days. I mean, 25 gigs is a lot.
Yeah.
So I ran the Stellar OST to PST converter tool, which I've always had success with, and it actually crashed when I was trying to register it, which really kind of made me mad because I was already 5 hours into this, and I'm babysitting it, right? So I tell the client, okay, look, I have to try to fix this, but it showed all the files, okay? He was happy. So I ran it again, and it fixed it within 5 hours again. This time I got to register fine, and it took 2 solid days to convert this PST.
That sounds about right.
And it turned into a 35 gig PST when I was done. So, so I was like, I billed him 2 hours for the work and then an extra hour to help him. I had to part out that PST file because 35 gigs in Outlook 2010 is it's like having a heart attack.
Yeah.
So I cleaned all that up. 3 hours billed. Pretty good job.
Now, was it actually 3 hours on keyboard? Because I know that you didn't just sit there and watch the conversion.
Well, for the first 2 hours, I consider babysitting time in there too. I usually bill 2 hours for these jobs if I don't have to do the file management of it.
Right.
If I do file management, I charge usually a full hour because I'm doing the cut and pasting, and you have to watch it the whole time. I just kind of all-inclusive it usually. And well, I mean, how much do you charge for something like that?
Well, actually, what I had been doing is doing it hourly.
So you were tracking every minute you were on the computer?
Well, yeah, but it was I was tracking on keyboard time.
Really?
So that during the transfers, I wasn't counting that time. So basically, it's more like a half hour on the front end, half hour on the back end, and then any cleanup time and stuff like that. So it's probably around 2.5 hours per mailbox. This was the first job that I actually quoted a flat rate on. And it actually came out about the same in terms of being on target with what my actual time was. So it worked out well. My hope is that I can be able to charge a flat rate and be under the time by a significant amount.
Yeah. Well, I thought about doing project pricing, but you know what? This could have gone a really bad way, and I could have spent a couple more hours. So for me to babysit the job for the first round, and I actually did some work, I figured 2 hours is fair, and then an hour to move all the mail out of the PSTs, which, by the way, went a lot more smoother this time because I moved out in groups of 5 and to 7 gigs at a time. Instead of what I do sometimes is clear out the PST the backwards way, and this time I was like, he had enough folders that I made 6 PSTs, I think, out of that. That was just a lot. I'm just so surprised, but nothing really shocks me. And then I had another lady, interestingly, this is a quick one. She was on her Mac, and she's a Gmail user, and she also has an iCloud account and a Mac account, and I mean, all these free accounts. And her Gmail account was showing her name as U.S. holidays and U.S. calendar, I think it said.
As the primary calendar?
Yeah. No, as the name on the account.
Oh, that it. Oh.
So when she got emails, instead of saying her name, it said the words holidays and U.S. calendar. And that was really weird. So I've never heard of that. So, of course, I go to my reference manual. And I find this one post in some Microsoft forum that's actually a hijack from a Gmail calendar that got subscribed to her by accident. So I went into her Gmail calendar account settings and unsubscribed from the holidays and U.S. calendar. Went away. I know. I always am always fascinated when little glitches like that happen for no reason, And let's see what my last one is here. I had trying to look at my notes. Oh man, I think I'm gonna save this one for the next show. This one's so long. 5 days on this job. I only billed her 4 hours too. I felt so bad for the lady, but all right. Well, Marvin, let's see here. Okay. Yeah, I'm just gonna save that for next time. The other job I did yesterday, which is kind of one that a lot of other techs might experience, is a client on her Yahoo account. She couldn't log into Outlook, and it turned out, of course, to be a password issue, which is common. And once we got into her account, she had 425,000 emails. Have you ever seen that many?
I don't believe I have.
I actually told her I'm going to take a screenshot of this and show it off. Now, it was a corrupted PST file that just kept downloading, of course, and I believe it was probably a lot of duplication, and she had 415,000 unread emails, so there was obviously a problem. So I downloaded it all to a PST file, and then once I was done, I said, you know what, this is going to take forever, so let's just go see what Yahoo IMAP has. And the interesting thing was, it was kind of like a mistake meant to happen. I set up her Yahoo IMAP, and all of her folders from the IMAP came down, which she was pleasantly surprised to see. And then I also said, well, let's let this all download, and then we can take it off the server now. And she had, last time I checked, 70,000 in her inbox.
That's just
I just can't. I have no email in my inbox. I just don't understand how people are just going to let that build up. But anyway, we're going to have another appointment on Tuesday to go and start deleting things off this Yahoo server because it was at 26 gigs. It's a lot.
That is a lot. I think the highest that I saw was about 170,000.
Wow. That screenshot I took is at Technibble. It's called the most email I've ever seen in the inbox thread.
Insane.
I know, I seriously had a heart attack. All right, folks, just a reminder, if anybody has any questions, feel free to email me, lisa@callthatgirl.biz. And if you're a fan of the show, please go to my website and share the show, callthatgirl.biz/Office365. And if you're interested in purchasing my ebooks, which the hottest one out is How to Do Microsoft Exchange Migrations, you can check them out at callthatgirl.biz/publications. All right, Marvin, let's hear all about your story. I'm ready.
Oh, my joy.
I'm ready to hear all about it.
Well, let me start by just giving a quick premise. This is a fairly new customer for us that I've probably mentioned on another podcast. They had Office 365 already.
Okay.
But they also had a local server. And they were trying to do all of this syncing between the server and the cloud. They had originally tried it with the SharePoint in the Office 365. That did not work. Then they tried to do OneDrive, but they were using OneDrive Personal. And they were trying to do it with the owner's OneDrive account, synced up to the server, but then share it with the rest of the Office. If that wasn't working. So I got referred to them to clean all this up. And basically, when I went in and looked at it and got to looking at all of the Office 365 stuff they were trying to do in the SharePoint, it just wasn't going to work. And I told them, you've got to choose. You either do the server and share your documents out that way, have people remote in, terminal server, whatever, or you go completely to Office 365 and SharePoint and share your documents through there.
Yeah.
Microsoft basically, I think that they are starting to bring back utilities that will allow sharing hybrid scenarios with an on-premise server. But in the beginning, that never was their intention. They wanted everything in the cloud. So that's what I got them to do. So we cleaned up their server, got them off, and they were using Office 365 just for mail.
Okay.
Didn't hear from them for months. Until about a month and a half ago, when they were having a whole bunch of issues, and they had just decided, well, they're going to fix a bunch of things at one time. They were going to move their Office 365 account from Microsoft to another Office 365 provider, not named AppRiver.
Not named AppRiver.
Yeah. And I asked why, and they said, well, our hosting is there, our website is there, and we
Oh,
we think
no.
that putting it all under one umbrella is going to fix a lot of this. Well, after talking with them about stuff and getting multiple phone calls, and most of their phone calls were really about connection issues, where they would
Yeah.
lose connection to their, they would say their Outlook, but it turns out they would lose connection to everything. So I
Yeah.
actually said, well, I need to come on site and see your environment because it really doesn't sound like it's an Office 365
No.
issue. So I went down there, did some checking, plugged in my Fluke network analyzer, and immediately noticed that there was a issue with their internal network.
What was choking it?
Well, what initially I thought, I went to the cable connection of the main person complaining, which was the owner, and immediately saw that there were some late packet issues, and I thought, well, it must be a cable issue. Got my cable analyzer. The cable itself was fine. So I went and checked the switch. Turned out the switch ports were showing bad. So I went and tested all of them and said, look, I don't think you've got a connection issue in terms of Office 365. I think you've got to replace this switch.
Yeah.
They actually had two switches. They had one switch for their computers, one switch for their voice over IP, which they're using. I won't mention the name, but they're using a hosted voice over IP solution. So that was another issue with their bandwidth. They were routing all of their information through a consumer grade router that was also their Wi-Fi connection instead of letting their server route all the traffic. So their router was handing out DHCP, DNS for both the wired and the wireless networks. To make a long story short, I was able to go in there, change out the switch, clean up the network, got rid of their connection issues. That was on a
You'll get
Tuesday.
job closed, right?
Yeah. So that was on a Tuesday. And so Tuesday afternoon, they're like, well, we're ready to switch over on Friday. Can you go ahead and do that for us? And I said, well, we haven't really done any prep work. I need to do prep work with it. So they're like, well, how long will that take? And I said, well, I need a day to come in and check all the computers. And they just didn't want to wait that long because that would have pushed them to this weekend, which I wasn't going to do a migration over a holiday weekend.
No.
I'm already booked for the next 2 weekends. They would have had to wait a month. So it was last week or nothing.
But hold on a second. You fixed the issues, but they still were like, nah, we still aren't happy, so we still want you to migrate us from exchange to exchange.
Well, let me probably clarify that a little bit. They had already purchased the Office 365 accounts at the other provider.
Because they got talked into it by some
Yes.
sales
Yeah,
hustler.
they had a nice salesperson that tried to explain to them that it's going to be so much easier, so much better,
Oh,
so much cheaper. You're going to save money.
oh, and we have great sales and support.
Yes. Yeah, and their sales and support was, okay, we can do this, this, and this, and then you have to have a tech do this, this, and this.
Yeah. So really, you're going to spend a couple grand
So it
to
was,
lose a lot of money.
yeah, so they had already had the accounts,
Okay.
and of course they were getting, notifications, your Office 365 needs to be set up.
Yeah.
Hurry, hurry, hurry. So that's what prompted it.
Urgency. Urgency.
Yeah. So this was actually 19 accounts is
Oh
really
yeah.
what we were talking about.
I've never done that many.
But there were actually only 12 computers
Oh okay.
because 7 of the people were actually outside of the office and they used either webmail or their phones in order to access their email.
Oh, so those other 7 people you got to do a lot more work for, right?
Actually, it turned out I didn't have to do a lot, but I thought so.
Okay.
Because I thought I was going to have to, contact each one of them individually. I need to see their phones. I need to, but it actually turned out really good. One of the things that I did some very quick research, and I had heard about the migration tools from Code2.
Okay.
And it's code2.com, CODETWO.
I've heard of them.
And this wasn't a true exchange migration. So they have a utility called the Office 365 Backup and Restore tool.
Okay.
So in my mind, and after talking with the tech from the new company, he was like, well, yeah, all you do is back up and then restore and upload and we'll be fine.
Okay.
So I said, okay. So the quickest way to do the download, in my opinion, was to get the Code 2 tool, which starts out at $10 per user. So, I mean, it's really, really cheap when you're looking at what it does. So I started on a Friday night, got them all to shut down and not think that they would be able to use their email, between Friday and Sunday sometime.
Mm-hmm.
Did the download of their backup, and that actually went very well. And that finished, I think I started it at 5:15 in the afternoon. It finished around 3 a.m. So all 19 mailboxes. And basically by 9 o'clock Saturday morning, I was ready to create all the accounts at um, the new provider,
Mm-hmm.
shut down the Office 365 at the Microsoft.
Okay.
It took a little time for the accounts to actually become live and send out the email saying, we're now ready for you to upload mail. Then I went to the backup tool and selected accounts and simply hit restore.
Hmm.
So, the
Okay, now the fun part. That all seemed pretty easy, Marvin.
so
Do,
the
do,
first joy
do.
comes at the one mailbox that I did not take into account the size and the speed of their internet connection.
Oh, that's
So
tough.
this is where I want to really make a point for anybody doing jobs like this. You have got to go through your prerequisite checklist.
Yeah.
The stuff that I had wanted to do
Oh,
and they said we didn't have time to do. And normally what I would do, and I do this for server migrations, network migration, all my stuff,
yeah.
is I go physically on site and I check computers. I check software. I check mailbox size. I check all these things ahead of
Yep.
time. And even though I was there and had switched out their router and some other stuff, I never verified what their actual internet speed was.
Oh, bad, bad, bad.
And turns out that they had, which I thought was good because they originally had a T1 account and they had moved over to a cable account.
Okay.
And so when I did the first, not the first, actually, I think it was the third mailbox, it was a 20.6 gig mailbox with 62,848 items.
62,000.
And the estimated restore time for that was 1 day, 19 hours.
Okay.
If you're doing multiples on
Yeah.
site, you could probably work around that. But I was doing this from my office. Their office is an hour away, and I was doing everything remote on their server. Their download speed was about 10 meg, which is
Up
why
was one.
the up was actually it was supposed to be 3, but it was around 2.6
Oh,
in there.
times 12 mailboxes.
Yeah. And the third one was 20.6 gig. So I quickly had to scramble and call them and say, your upload speed probably isn't what it is
Yeah.
supposed to be. So they did some scrambling. They were able to get in touch with their provider, get an upgrade,
Okay.
and they were able to upgrade to a 10 meg upload.
Nice.
Which
Temporarily or permanent? Which
no, they're
that's
doing it. It's
permanent.
permanent. It's permanent.
Good.
It's a 50 down and 10 up. So
Cool.
that is going to be great for them. So that was the first hurdle that I ran into where,
Wow.
it significantly, lessened the time. It still took me into Tuesday morning to
Yeah.
get all of those mailboxes transferred over. I can't imagine what it would have been if we had, not been able to change that upload speed.
So Marvin, let me ask you a question in terms of the desktop Outlook. So did you have to remote into each computer and set up a new profile for them, or did they just magically do it on their own profile?
I did, but I didn't have to do it for the backup. I did have to do it to
For the
set
new.
up, the new profile
Okay.
and do that way. So yes, I did have to do
Okay.
that. Delete the old profile, create a new one, and everything started coming in.
Okay, so now here's a question about aftercare stuff. So for you to do 19 people, which I have to correct myself, I actually did do a 22 person, my very first migration I ever did. but mine was I had a lot of techs help me, and they're still doing it the way I do it now. And you're doing it what I'd call the MSP way, the not break fix technician way, which I will explain later. But the point is do you get calls from the client saying, "Look, my autofill's gone and stuff is wrong," and it's like a new profile for them, right? Do you tell them they just have to start over?
In this case, I didn't get those calls, or at least I haven't gotten them yet.
Mm-hmm.
But the biggest thing I got was for people who did not have their mailbox ready first thing
Yeah.
Monday morning were obviously in a panic.
Oh my God! Use the
And
portal.
so that's what we ended up having to do,
Yeah.
that they were able to at least send and receive new mail, but they
Yep.
just didn't have access to their old mail until the upload had finished. And even though the people that were being uploaded,
Mm,
they could see part of their mailbox, because of course when you've
yep.
got so many items, it only you may see your sent items,
Mm-hmm.
or your deleted items first, but then you don't see your inbox and the folders. And it was just a matter of not having enough time to prepare them to say, look, you're going to have to be patient. Your stuff will be
It's called
there
managing expectations,
at
Marvin.
some point
That's
in time. Yep.
that's my biggest takeaway for everybody on this show is the migration part is easy. It's the managing the expectations of the clients, and for you to say you should check their internet speed. I've had that burn me many, many times where I don't even think about it, and all of a sudden I'm like, why is it not doing it? Oh, because they're on like one up. I mean,
DSL.
super slow. And so I think in my migration checklist that I talked about in my last show, I'm going to add that, but at least figure it out. But I do remote for a lot of people in different offices around the country sometimes, and most people are okay with as long as they know that it's synchronizing and they can use it on the portal and on their phone, they don't care.
Right.
They know it's a migration, and a migration is a big technical project. So if you tell them it's going to take a while, they're okay with that.
Well, in most scenarios, I have a long relationship with a lot of
Yeah.
my clients. So when we do these migrations, I have the time to sit down with them and go over this. This was just a scenario where
They're
you know,
new,
they're
too.
new, they were impatient, they were pushy, they wanted to get it done, and rather than stand my ground like I
Yeah.
normally would, because with my current clients, I can flat out tell them no.
Yeah.
And they don't argue with me because I've been with them long enough and they've been through enough fires with me to know that don't push it, let's do it right.
Yeah, you know what? A lot of times I've had the people that say, "Can we do this migration tomorrow?" And it's bit me because, of course, I'm thinking, "Hey, that's $350 tomorrow. I wasn't expecting." That can cause problems if you don't do your list and your processes the correct way.
Yeah.
So now I don't have that expectation unless, I mean, I've had some people in a dire Gmail emergency, and I seriously have had to do some Gmail surgery on their stuff prior to the migration even. And then I moved them to Exchange, and they're like, "Wow, that was like night and day," because they had Google apps and it didn't work too well.
Hmm.
And now I'm like, now you're on the perfect one because they had iPhones and iPads, and Google apps didn't work well with those. So I got real lucky.
Yeah.
I can fight those fires fast, but Marvin, the thing is that you learned a lot from this migration, and it was your first.
It's the first full migration,
Yeah.
and it wasn't pretty, but the speed issue, the expectation issue, that wasn't even the best
Yeah.
part of it.
What was the best part of
The
it?
best part was when they moved over to the new provider and they started to work Monday, some of the users started to get a notice that their activation or subscription was not valid.
Oh, oh, for Office 365 Office?
Yes.
No, they lost their subscription
Well,
too.
yes, because I somehow naively believed them when they said that they all had purchased Office 2013.
Oh, what, the
When in
home version?
fact, when in fact what they had done was, um, since there was 19 of them, they had purchased 5 of the Office premium packages so they could get the 5 users of software.
Oh, so they were cheating, piggybacking, and
And then for the
stealing.
other accounts, they had just purchased the email portion. So when we moved them over, the people that had the proper premium subscription were fine, but everybody else did not have fully licensed download
Oh, so it
desktop
cost them
products.
tons of money to
So now
update their software.
they've got to redo that. So the whole reason that they switched over, thinking that they would save money, basically turned around and bit them in the backside
Oh my God!
because
So
now they're spending more.
they actually paid you too for the migration. They
Yes,
had to buy 14 more subscriptions for Office 2013.
yes,
Downtime, so that's 3 biggies.
yep,
Frustrated employees, and they got nothing different in terms of exchange.
no,
And oh wait. Then let's add the 5th part. They have the crappy sales and support people from the company.
yeah.
It's 5, Marvin. Oh man.
Well, it worked out great for me because there were a lot of
Exactly.
those issues where when that came up, I was like, well, you need to call your provider because they sold you the wrong packages.
Yeah, and that
And
ain't
they,
your fault.
well, and but the funny thing was they looked at me as, can you help us? And I had to tell them, I can't help you. I can guide you and tell you what you should have done or what you can do now to fix it. But the
Yeah.
problem is they sold you the wrong package. Nobody checked to see if what they were selling you was proper. And I did probably get a little frustrated Wednesday afternoon where I finally had to just stop them and say, look, I wanted to take the proper time to vet
Yeah.
this whole project, and you wouldn't give it to me. So you can't come back at me now yelling at me. It's not even my product. I didn't sell you this. I'm
I'm the
helping
tech.
you.
That's
I'm
simple way you
help.
can say. I hate saying it. I'm just the tech here.
Hmm.
So I'm not the salesperson. That's why I
Yeah.
have to give a little pitch for my lovely AppRiver people there, Marvin. You call their sales department, you get a sales guy. They're not going to oversell you on a product if you don't need it. You call in for tech support, you get a tech guy who's not going to sell you anything, or tech girl, whatever. It it's so nice to work with a professional company that's not going to like work as a hustler, just to get a new commission that call, and they're not going to, say, hey, let me email you back right away so I can work with you further. I get that all the time, and that's why to me it's just nice to have one provider, one everything. But
Yeah.
so, are you planning on doing more migrations moving ahead?
Well, I don't think we have a choice. I
It's what we
think
do.
I think the world is moving to this cloud solution
Yeah,
and Office 365. I will also say that I have been using AppRiver for a couple of my clients. Let
nice.
me rephrase that. One of my biggest clients got AppRiver,
Oh,
and I worked with them, so it's not like I recommended them.
are you a referral partner now?
I am a referral partner now,
Nice.
so I do have some other clients that are using it, but you know, hands down, from my experience over the last 2.5 years,
Yeah.
AppRiver has never let us down.
No.
And the little issues that have come up were things that had nothing to do with AppRiver, had nothing to do with Office 365. Um, so you can't really blame them for any of that. But their support has always been there, not just for me from a technical standpoint, but for customers also. Customers can call them up and get the help that they need, and they're not having to depend on us
Exactly.
and all of that.
Okay. There's 2 different plans. You can be in the partner program or the reseller plan, and you're in the partner, right?
I'm in the partner plan, yes.
Yeah.
I just decided that I didn't want to get into reselling
That's right.
and have to be that first point of contact.
No.
Um, it, the extra money that I would get from being a reseller, it would be nice, but that's really not
But we
what
don't
I'm
have the
about.
manpower, Marvin. We're independent contract or consultants. I'll use that word. It's much better. And I personally tell every client, like, call them first, then call me because I'm going to bill you. So if you're having a problem with your server or something, call them first. And I've had no complaints from the clients and no complaints from AppRiver about selling it that way. Because they're my team of exchange administrators.
Right.
I don't have to be an exchange administrator now. I can do what I do best.
Well, the funny thing is I still get to bill my clients a monthly service fee because basically the way that part of my plan works is I bill them based on the number of servers, the number of desktops, and the number of services that I have to support. So whenever a person is added or terminated, basically I do that. So I log in and set up the accounts. So I'm still getting something.
Yeah, you're an IT administrator for that company.
Yes.
The problem between me, there's no problem, but the difference between your business and my business is that I don't have monthly billing for my clients. I am break fix on that level. So what I do is I turn around at the end of an exchange migration and offer the clients a support ticket, which is equal to your monthly billing. Then they can use me for IT administration purposes. And I'm getting much better at selling those now. I've learned the pitch. I've learned the value add for me to say, well, here's how much the migration is going to be, $600, and then let's just put a support ticket on top of that so then you can use me all the time. And they're like, done. I've made it real simple to just say most of my clients buy a support ticket. I mean, they do.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I tell them that, so it helps. I want to be their IT support person, and I like, after a migration, I've kind of become, like, I feel like they're a real client at that point, and they're just not going to dump me. Some do. I get dumped. But
I think that's the nature of the way things are going now. They hire us to get the job done, and then they're off and running. And, of course, they're being told by some of these cloud providers, not just Office 365, but a lot of the other cloud products, you don't need a tech. You don't need an IT person.
Oh, no. Just use us.
Yet, anytime there's a problem, that same cloud provider is saying, well, you need to find somebody to help you.
Well, I know AppRiver tells their people to find a local tech.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that it's important for a company to have somebody to rely on for IT stuff, even if they're small. I do get hired to do migration work with and this is a pitch for me to the listeners, is other technicians will call me to come in and do the migration, but they're the IT person, but they just don't want to learn it. They just would say, Lisa, two things. You either do it or let's do it together to save my company some money. So like this client I have coming on at the beginning of June, Brian from Iowa, I talked about in the last show, he hired me to do 17 mailboxes, and he did the bulk of the work because he was on site.
Right.
And I gave him the instructions, and through just my consulting help, he actually did it. I don't think he's going to want to do another one, because he has a job already.
Right.
But it actually saved his company, I don't know, a couple thousand probably. So, and he got to learn it, and he's techie, and he heard me on the Podnuts network. So it was a fun job. I actually liked it. We still have the other half of the migration to do here soon. But anyway, the point is that, the techs out there listening, now you have opportunities to do the migration work or outsource it. And Office 365, now, I know, Marvin, you have experience with it, but it's not something that's easy for everybody to figure out and sell. And
selling is tough because depending on whether you're going to go straight to Microsoft and get one of their multi-plan systems, or you're going to go through another provider. AppRiver's is pretty simple. They don't have 20 plans to choose from. No. But some of the other providers do.
Extra bucks. It's a couple extra bucks a month.
Yeah.
But I tell my clients, those $2 per mailbox is worth not hanging on the phone with Microsoft for hours. And I'm billing you at $130 an hour.
Yeah.
So that, to me, as soon as I tell them that, they're like, yeah, I'll go with AppRiver. Yeah.
Yeah, and a product that's not just from a support standpoint, but from a product standpoint, it is solid.
Yeah. Do you sell a lot of the full packages with like even Yammer on there and all that?
No, most of my clients are pretty much just the Exchange. We are going to be adding archiving to
Mm,
one of the clients,
yep.
and the big bulk of my smaller clients that are medical offices, we're doing the encryption
Okay.
on the email.
Yep. I have their spam filter. It's called SecureTide, and I like the product. I mean, except I have to change my settings, I think, a little, but it does a pretty good job of keeping my inbox pretty clean and my junk mail down to just very few emails. I like it.
Okay,
Yeah,
hadn't
it's pretty nice.
hadn't used that. Their built-in spam protection with the Outlook, has been working pretty good
Oh,
for my
it's
clients.
nice. I actually have a client that I talked about in the last show that lives down in the tropical islands down way south of Florida. And he, within a couple days, already said that he wasn't even sure he needed a spam filter because the exchange was so awesome. I mean, it just declutters.
Yeah, it does. What's
Yeah.
funny is every now and then I'll get a forwarded message where somebody will find a spam in their mailbox and be like, "What's this?" And I have to tell them, "Look, spam filtering is not 100%, so you're going to get a
No,
few every now and then."
no. Yeah, I actually, I've been trying to push more the secure tied on, but people don't really need it. But I know there's some people that do, and the product's there. Um, I also want to talk to you still about, you talked earlier about people with SharePoint and OneDrive.
Hmm.
Do you have a lot of clients using them successfully right now?
None.
Oh, I know. I hate to say that too.
Well, let me rephrase that. None of them are using it through Office 365. I do have some clients that are using the old SharePoint through their small business server.
Yep, yep. Well, that's old
Um,
school. That
that,
actually worked.
yeah.
I used to do SharePoint administration for a company. That worked.
Hmm.
I just did top level stuff, first
Yeah.
level stuff. But the I've been trying to keep up with the techs on TechNibble, talking about the SharePoint and OneDrive problems. And the one solution I found that does work is to map a drive on Windows to the SharePoint server and bypass downloading the sync tool.
Hmm.
And I have a video on YouTube, which I'll put in the show notes, about that. I made the video because it took me a long time to figure it out. I've got like 700 or 800 views on YouTube now for it. But it basically bypasses the sync tool and it becomes a map drive.
Right.
I make it the S drive for SharePoint, and it can be tricky because it can disconnect. Um, if you go offline, it disconnects and you just have to reconnect it again. But there's just a few settings that you just configure once, and it should stay.
And you can probably just set a little batch file so that if they lose connection, they can just
You know what?
hit the back
Brian
button.
did that.
Yeah.
Brian, the guy who's on my show next week, did create some kind of shortcut link for his users to click on, and it reattaches it.
Yeah.
Yep. So maybe he'll be nice and give that out to people.
Okay.
But yeah, I'm not. I don't know. I don't really actually get a lot of calls for the OneDrive and SharePoint because I took it off my marketing. But I do help people with it, and I still do my best. I don't deny a call unless they want full SharePoint intranet, big job. Then I have that referral person I have.
Yeah. I'll have to look at the
Yeah.
OneDrive stuff. I'm just not big on in-house syncing to the
Yeah.
cloud. I did have a customer that I had to go see a couple weeks ago
Yeah.
where they were complaining about their speeds,
Mm-hmm.
and I went and took my testers and found out that all of them were using a personal Dropbox account
Nice.
to sync all their files.
And not
So
sharing within the team Dropbox, but personal, right?
yeah, it was all personal, and they were all trying to access files at the same time and then
Oh,
share
funny.
them. And then on top of that, they're sending, big email file attachments. And I had to tell them, I said, you're using all of your bandwidth
Yeah.
trying to sync. Instead, you should be having an in-house server where you're sharing your files that way instead of having, I think it was 8 people trying to sync up and down at the same
Choking the
time.
network.
So I
Well,
know that that's going to be a big thing soon.
yeah.
Companies are going to want to start doing that, but I really have to research the impact that it's having on local. local networks.
Yeah, well, the thing is how many people can make it cost effective? You know what I mean? Like, how many people in an office need to have a file sharing server? And that's all they do.
Right.
I just know that most of my clients, a lot of them don't even work in the same office, so they have to use the Dropbox.
And that's a
And
little different. I mean,
yeah,
if you're not in the same office, I can understand. But
yeah,
this one client, they're all in the same office.
yeah. And they're also the ones that have slow internet downloads, and they need to up everything. And
Yeah.
I don't know. I think I got a call from a client this last week who needed me for some Outlook help. He's the CEO of a pretty big company, and they're all on POP, which I was like, why are you guys on POP? You're 250 people, and your company should be on Exchange. And he was like, well, I guess I never thought about it. And I said, well, look, here's the quick and dirty. It's going to cost you $250 a month for the Exchange boxes. It's going to cost you about 10 grand for the migration. They don't need everybody on Exchange. And he just said that we just never thought about that. And they're all in one office. So if I end up doing that migration, Marvin, that's 50 people in one office. So to me,
That should be
you think
fun.
about, yeah, and then right now I think they have their own server. I don't remember, but they were kind of like, they just until they started seeing the need for the salespeople and everything else to need the cloud and everything. I'm not going to work with that, but I think they were the ones that told me they had a server that hadn't been maintained or updated. I was like, what? Like, how long has it been? You know,
Well,
like if you have a server, you
if
better
they're
have
using POP for
update.
their email with that many people, they probably have a server that's just serving up a few files. And
I never got into servers, so that's out of my territory. I just help people move away from them. All right, Marvin, do you have anything else to add to our lovely stories here today?
no, I just basically reiterate the point that have a checklist
Yeah.
and use it before you start the migration.
Yeah. Well,
You
my
know,
checklist show was just a few days ago. It hasn't been published yet, so it's on show number 21 I just
hmm
did, and I'm going to add to it check internet speed.
upload and download speeds.
Hold on, let me take a note here real quick. And also subscriptions for Microsoft.
Yes.
See if they have one already. I'm going to make sure I get this. Subscriptions for Microsoft, Office 365, and internet speeds. Okay, so I'm going to add these to my checklist. My show last time was a checklist for the owners and a checklist for each employee, Marvin.
Right.
Because each employee, I go through them and ask them their own personal questions as well. It's very worthwhile.
Do you have on that checklist a reminder for them to delete messages they don't need?
No. You think
One
that
of
should be on there as a
I think
delete
so
what you want?
because one of the big mailboxes that I had, the gentleman had 34,000 deleted items.
God. I just moan because
And
that's another many
I
hours
said,
of uploading them.
yeah, I said, this deleted items is your trash. Do
Yeah.
you really need your trash? And he's like, well, not really, but I like to look at it. I said, okay, well, how far back do you need to look at it? Because he had mail going back to 2005. In
But
that,
Marvin, the trash is a database.
well, I just tell them, think of your trash just like your house trash. When you take it out to the
It's out.
bin, it's out there, and if you really want to run out there the next day and rummage through your
Yeah.
trash, that's one thing. But once you take it to the curb, it's gone, and that's how you need to treat your deleted items box.
Well, that's
Because
not me.
probably, yeah, but and he was one of the people that kept complaining how long it was taking. I said, well, if you didn't keep 34,000 items in your deleted items box, it'd go much
Yeah.
faster.
I'm gonna add that to the list actually, and delete any folders you don't want. Here's what I've kind of changed, Marvin, with some of my migrations. If they're on POP, the thing is I like making a copy of the PST file because then I can import it into the same profile faster. If
Right.
that's how I'm doing it. A lot of times, if it's IMAP, you have to export it to a PST so I can import it. And my fear is that somebody would go and delete a bunch of stuff, and then, oh, I needed it.
Right.
You told me to delete it, and now what? And I deleted like all of last year's financial reports. I don't know. Maybe I'll say something, but
yeah. Again, that's part of the whole, pre-checklist of going through and
yeah.
do you need this? Do you need this? The the thing I liked about the code tool backup that I did,
Mm-hmm.
it obviously would not have worked for them in a sense where I did not want to have to go on site, manually back up
Yeah.
the computer. Although I could see where that comes in handy because the backup that I still have is still in a format that they really can't use unless I
Yeah.
restore it. But it was so much faster to use that tool.
Yeah. See, my stuff is all I remote into each person's computer. I export the calendar, the contacts, the tasks. Then I export out the IMAP or the Exchange. And even if they have Exchange, I still do the calendar and contacts because I want that in the server first because it can take so long.
This code tool backup did all that.
Nice.
I mean, I think
First,
you,
too?
yeah.
Marvin, don't make me start thinking about doing migrations over 20 now.
Hey,
I'm going to need a team because I just...
you do what you got to do, but
Well, I'm kind of like thinking I'll just tell everybody I'm going to start hiring on some people so I can get out of doing the pre-migration and after. It's really stuff I could train a tech to do, and then I can work on sales and the DNS work and the aftercare, which the aftercare is my favorite.
Well, I can tell you this is a job where I missed having a tech.
I know,
Because
grunt work.
when I had techs, I could have just sent him there, let's say, get all this information for me, and I wouldn't have felt rushed.
Yeah. Well, you know what? You like your life the way it is. I think I'm going to like having an assistant, and I'm working on hiring a contractor to help with migrations as well because, I don't know, I'm just kind of like, it's not boring work to me. It's just really step by step by step. I could hire someone to do that, and I want to do the stuff that actually, is what I should be doing. Not the exporting, and troubleshooting issues like that.
Right.
Yeah. All right, Marvin. Coming up, everybody, is next Sunday is Mike Smith from the Mike Tech Show. We're going to do a live show. Hopefully you can get the notes on that. I'll put it in this show. I also have, after him, the guy Brian from Iowa, who I helped with the migration, who was a Podnuts follower. And I'm going to close the show, Marvin. You got any final notes?
Have a happy holiday.
Yeah. Tomorrow's Memorial Day for those that are listening later. All right, well, this has been a Podnuts production, audio supported by Mitch Hammond. Thanks again to our sponsor, AppRiver. Be sure to check out other Podnuts podcasts, Podnuts Daily, Android Apps Addicts, Linux for the Rest of Us, and the Geeksters. I'm Lisa Hendrickson. Check you out next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Okay.